All right, welcome back. And this one has been hogging the headlines since it began. Now, the High Court in Pretoria has postponed the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial to the 12th of next month. And this follows an application by counsel for the fifth accused, Advocate Zandile Mshololo, who wanted to study the contents of a second docket in the murder case, which she only got hold of last Wednesday. Now, the court will hear argument on that on the 12th of July by counsel for the other four accused, Advocate Malesela Teffo, on the jurisdiction then of whether the court has the jurisdiction to hear this matter. And 5 men currently standing trial for the murder of soccer star Senzo Meyiwa, who was shot and killed in Vosloorus in 2014. Advocate Teffo had opposed the postponement, but Judge Tshifiwa Maumela found Mshololo's application reasonable. And someone who's been watching this with a hawk's eye for us, SABC Senior reporter Chriselda Lewis, has been there, front center. We saw her even on the screen. At some point thought you were assisting Advocate Mshololo. They are just joking. Good morning, Chriselda.
Morning, Sakina.
So this trial, first, let me get your sentiments on it overall.
Shocking. I don't think we've witnessed anything of this nature ever since we've been covering court appearances. For myself, at least 19 years now. A number of court cases, nothing to the extent of what we've seen of what clearly looks to have been a complete embarrassment, I think, for the South African police service in terms of what was scheduled to be done at the crime scene, which looks like wasn't done. And this based on the concessions that were made by the state's first witness, Thabo Mosia, who will come back at a later stage and continue to be cross-examined. I mean, from the very word go, Sakina, when he had deposed of an affidavit, all along you remember in his evidence, in his testimony, he had maintained that he didn't believe that the crime scene had been contaminated. But what we later learned through an affidavit was that he actually does believe that the scene had been contaminated. And this is precisely because police had only responded to the crime scene about 4 hours after the incident itself had actually happened. And what we learned also was that there were people inside the house at the time. Mosia had only arrived when the scene had been cordoned off. And, you know, we started to see things unravel from there, where he had to concede that he does believe that there is a possibility that that scene had been contaminated. There were people inside the house. And, you know, Sakina, if we look at what we also saw unfold, there were so many sidebars pertaining to this case, so many sideshows. And one that sticks out for me is the passing of Brigadier Philani Ndlovu. And the National Prosecuting Authority quite vehemently denying that he was scheduled to be a witness in this particular matter. And, you know, they didn't take a statement from him. In other words, he was quite insignificant in this whole debacle, if I may. But only to learn that the state's first witness, at some point, had even handed over the scene to the late Brigadier Philani Ndlovu. The late Brigadier Philani Ndlovu, according to Mosia's testimony, he had handed over the scene to Brigadier Philani Ndlovu. He had showed him where to take photographs of the scene. And, in fact, it had been Brigadier Philani Ndlovu who had telephoned Mosia to say to him, there is a scene, but go to the hospital first. And by the time he had gone to the crime scene, Brigadier Philani Ndlovu, who didn't have an address for the crime scene, was already there. So there's so much that is taking place in this case, but, you know, those who are in the know in terms of what was supposed to happen when you look at forensics, that would be the most important. Crucial things, Sakina, like, you know, ruling out the possibility that those that were in the house, you know, did not pull the trigger. No gunshot residue was taken from the hands of the occupants in the house. The vehicle that Senzo Meyiwa was taken to hospital in, no blood spatter was taken from there to establish, you know, whether he was bleeding. So it really looks like, you know, a case that is, it's just gone from disarray into disarray. If you look at it from where we're sitting, you know, certainly what was supposed to be done from the word go did not happen. And not just there, Sakina, is that even when exhibits were taken from the scene, we heard things about exhibits being stored in a safe for a particular period of time. until the forensics office had opened for them to be properly stored, and quite a number of aspects pertaining to that. And you would find also that, questions asked about the bullet projectile that had been found inside the house. Sergeant Thabo Mosia was the forensic detective. He had also only found that bullet projectile the next day. That was the second time when he had gone to the scene. So the defense is arguing that evidence had been planted inside that house. Why was it that at the main entrance, at the door, which is believed that the so-called robbers had entered the house, why would that not be the first place you check? If there was a bullet hole somewhere within proximity to that door, check for a bullet projectile next to it. Why was it not found on the first day? But the constant argument that he gave was that he was waiting for a task team to come and assist him. He says that is procedure, in that you wait for a task team to come and assist. He found the scene difficult to handle and needed assistance. That is what he contends. But a number of concessions have been made where he concedes that what was supposed to be done was not done. Questions about his qualifications, whether he was qualified to even be on the scene at the time. After his credentials had been questioned, it then turns out the qualification that he needed to attend to a scene of that nature in his capacity as a forensic detective, he had about a year's experience, 1 year experience, after obtaining, those credentials, and then he had attended to the scene where Senzo Meyiwa was killed. So a lot of the defense pushing towards incompetence on the part of police. They didn't do their job properly from the word go. That is what the defense is contending, and that even those that had been deployed to the scene were not qualified to do so. Quite damning what has been taking place in this particular trial.
And as you say, so many sideshows as well. And then last week up comes a second docket. And we've heard about the second docket, on the sidelines. But yes, last week it came into stark focus in court.
Sakina, there was always going to be a bone of contention, because you must remember a docket 636 is the first docket that had been opened in this particular matter, which speaks to the accused that are currently in the dock as the suspects in this matter. Now, docket 375 is the second docket that had been opened, and it had basically, we believe currently, is that it states that those that were in the house at the time that Senzo Meyiwa was killed, including Kelly Khumalo, her sister, her mother, Longwe Twala, and others, should be the ones to face, charges relating to the killing of Senzo Meyiwa. So we'd asked from the very word go, Sakina. We did not get any answers. And I'm not trying to be unfair to the National Prosecuting Authority. There is record of the media having asked, what is the status? Way before it was raised in court, what was the status of docket 375? Our telephone calls were not answered. We didn't get an answer. And we gave reasonable time for them to come back to us and give us an answer, because we wanted to know we kept on seeing that this was going to be a bone of contention inside court. After it was then asked for, when the docket came up, and then Advocate Zandile Mshololo had basically asked, the Director of Public Prosecutions in Gauteng to basically indicate what is the status of that docket. We now hear that that docket has no merit, and that there was no official decision that had been taken on a docket 375, and that there was a junior advocate who had basically had an opinion on this particular matter, something that was challenged by Advocate Malesela Teffo yesterday, who says, in fact, this was not a junior advocate, this was a senior advocate. Now, Zandile Mshololo, Advocate Zandile Mshololo, yesterday is now demanding that the Director of Public Prosecutions in the Gauteng South Division, he must clarify what is the final decision regarding this docket. When is the final decision to be made? This incident happened in 2014. Also, what is the status of, possible witnesses that may be called? Kelly Khumalo and others. What is their status? How will they be appearing in this particular court? So quite a number of issues we're expecting to unfold. So that docket itself is quite critical in terms of what the Director of Public Prosecutions in the South Gauteng Division will decide. But that is bound to be a contentious issue in this matter, in particular because of what we've heard over the past couple of weeks.
And it's going to be interesting to find out whether the DPP will actually furnish reasons as to why the second docket's indictment was not signed off on. But, you know, just Chriselda, as we wrap this up, in terms of the postponements, just give us clarity on that and when the trial will actually resume.
So the actual trial itself, Sakina, resumes in September, but we're coming back going back to the court in July. Now, in July, remember, there was a bone of contention that had actually led to an exchange between the presiding judge as well as Advocate Malesela Teffo. When Advocate Zandile Mshololo wanted to continue with the cross-examination, Advocate Malesela Teffo said that he wanted to raise quite a number of issues. He is now questioning the jurisdiction of this matter. Now, this is an issue that I've spoken to the former National Director of Public Prosecutions about, Vosloorus, and he said it would be in the interest of everyone in this particular matter that the National Prosecuting Authority give some clarity on why the matter had been moved from the South Gauteng High Court, where it should have been heard, because the actual crime scene was in Vosloorus. And why was the matter taken to the North Gauteng High Court? There was a letter as well that had been signed off by the current National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Shamela Batohi. Advocate Malesela Teffo was also questioning the veracity of that document. In fact, he says that the NDPP should actually come and testify in the doc that indeed that is her document. Why did she sign it on a Sunday? And a number of other aspects. So in September is the resumption of the actual trial, but in July will be the arguments that will be heard relating to this issue of jurisdiction, which will be quite critical to allay, this case has been filled with conspiracy theories as well. But, we're not saying that the NPA should entertain anything that comes out in the court of public opinion. But if a former National Director of Public Prosecutions also believes that the more clarity there is about why certain things are done, and because this case has dragged on for so long, and South Africans have a high interest in it, rather just play open cards.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And Chriselda, thanks so much and for being our eyes and ears in that court and making sure that we are kept up to speed with those developments. Chriselda Lewis, and of course, we will, of course, keep you abreast of all those proceedings as you hear Chriselda doing the spade work there. And if there's anything to report, we'll have it for you here on SABC News. Right now, though, we carry on with Morning Live. It's